Hello, my name is RoseLeighton and I work as a lecturer in higher education. If you ask me what I think of where education is heading, I would like to make the following statement. Education of the future is like a good museum. It might feel like a contradiction. A museum stores things from the past and tells stories of what has been. What has that got to do with education? I think it's a great metaphor. A museum has a collection of objects in repositories, curators who put together exhibitions, and visitors who visit the exhibitions and learn from them. Education has access to an ever-growing repository of very different learning objects: open educational resources, scientific journals, video, audio, e-books, paper books, apps, blogs, webcasts. The list is endless and continues to grow. This means universities have access to a wealth of materials, all stored and waiting to be used in exhibitions, like in a good museum. In museums, these exhibitions are put together by curators. A curator selects the objects, brings them together and gives them context so that together they tell a story. Lecturers in higher education will be more and more like good curators. They are the ones to select the best learning objects from the repository, make sure they match with their audience, they add materials where necessary and tell the story that needs telling. Every museum has visitors in all shapes and sizes. Some of those visitors already know a lot about the subject of the exhibition, others are completely blank. They wandered in from the streets because they liked the poster or because it started raining. Some visitors arrange for a guided tour by a museum expert, others want to touch and feel all the objects, and there's also visitors who look up things in their booklet or on their tablet or smartphone. Every visitor finds his own way through the museum and sees things, learns things, experiences things at his own pace, in his own preferred way. Students are a lot like museum visitors, but up until now they are forced to follow the tour guide and view the museum at his pace, stopping by the objects in his preferred order. In the future, it will be easier for students to behave like real visitors. Technology will allow the visiting of the exhibition to be independent of time and place, and students will be able to visit the museum at their own pace. They can decide which signs they want to read, if they want to see all the objects or intensively study just the one piece that blows them away and inspires them. I've been researching e-textbooks, and though it maybe doesn't sound this metaphor applies to them, I think it actually does. My research among university lecturers showed that they are not very interested in a complete book by an educational publisher replacing the traditional book. What they really want is the possibility to compose their own e-textbook based on multiple sources. They want possibilities to interact with that e-textbook, meaning they can add information and keep updating it, but also use things like quizzes and self-tests. And they would like to use the e-textbook as a social tool that enables students to be in touch with each other and their lecturer. You could say the e-textbook actually should offer a way for lecturers to create exhibitions with learning objects selected from the repository. To realize that, you need two things. First, lecturers need easy access to the repository. It has to be simple to find and select the smallest units of information and add these to your e-textbook. Second, you would need an environment in which taking in all this information is comfortable. It should be a pleasure to visit the exhibition. The selected learning objects should be presented in a good-looking, sleek interface. No endless lists of hyperlinks, but beautiful rooms in which the student is tempted to look at the objects. Think of the e-textbook as if it is the museum. You can take the metaphor of the museum a step further though. In future education, before the student exits the museum, he will have to show proof of what he has seen, experienced, learned. If the outcome doesn't match the lecturer's goal, the student can venture back into the museum and spend some more time on the objects he didn't grasp at first. Or you take it even further and you ask students to show their understanding of the exhibition by adding new objects to it, or by designing a new exhibition for future visitors. Looking at the example of the e-textbook, you could let students produce, not necessarily write, but produce, new chapters for the book and let them come up with showcases to back up a theory. Looking at education as if it is a museum, you will see that learning is turning into co-curation and co-creation. Curation and creation can be used as pedagogical levers to engage students in active learning. Together, lecturers and students can continue to learn and keep expanding the museum.